Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from. Then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. I used to think working the night shift at a gas station would be boring. Quiet nights, barely any customers, just me and the hum of the refrigerators. Easy money, right? That was before I started at the station off Route 17. It was one of those old, rundown places, flickering neon sign, only 2 pumps, and a tiny convenience store that smelled like stale coffee and something rotten that no amount of mopping could get rid of. My only co-worker at night was Jim, an old guy who had been working there for years. He barely spoke and spent most of the shift in the back office, probably sleeping. The first few nights were uneventful. Some truckers, a few late-night drivers, and the occasional drunk looking for snacks. But on my 5th night, I noticed something strange. At exactly 2:33 a.m., a car pulled up to pump 2. A dark-colored sedan with windows tinted so black I couldn't see inside. I waited for someone to step out, but the car just sat there. A minute passed. Then 2. I stepped outside, the cold air sharp against my skin. "Need any help?" I called. No answer. I took a few steps closer, squinting at the windshield. Still nothing. Then, the car's headlights flashed on. Blinding. I stumbled back, shielding my eyes. And just as suddenly as they turned on, they shut off. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding. Then, without a sound, the car rolled away, disappearing down the empty highway. No one ever got out. I went back inside, shaking off the uneasy feeling. Maybe it was some weirdo messing around. But when I checked the security footage, my blood ran cold. The car wasn't there. The footage showed me walking outside, looking around, talking to no one. Nothing but the empty gas station and the dark highway beyond. I replayed the clip 3 times, my hands sweating against the keyboard. Maybe the camera had glitched. Maybe I was just tired. I didn't tell Jim. He'd call me an idiot and go back to sleep. But I knew what I saw, and I knew that it had seen me too. The next night, I felt different, like something was off. The air in the station was heavier, the silence too deep. I found myself glancing at the clock, counting down to 2:33 a.m. Then, the bell above the door chimed. I looked up from the counter, expecting to see a customer. The store was empty. The door had swung open just an inch, letting in a sliver of cold air. A chill ran down my spine. I stepped around the counter, pushing the door shut, my fingers tight around the handle. The parking lot was still empty. No headlights. No car. I turned back toward the counter, and then I saw it. A figure, standing at the edge of the gas station lights, just beyond the tree line. I froze. It was too dark to see any details, just the outline of someone completely still facing the store. I swallowed hard. "Hey, you need something?" No answer. The figure didn't move. My pulse hammered in my ears. I reached for my phone, but my fingers fumbled, slick with sweat. Then, the security lights flickered. For a fraction of a second, everything went black. And when the lights came back, the figure was gone. The only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. I backed up toward the store, locked the door behind me, and turned toward the security monitors. Nothing. The cameras showed an empty parking lot. No movement. No shadow near the trees. I stayed behind the counter for the rest of my shift, gripping the box cutter we kept under the register, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But nothing did. At sunrise, I told myself it was over, that whatever was happening was in my head. Then I checked my phone. A single message. From an unknown number. A picture. Blurry. Dark. Taken from outside the store. Of me. Standing at the counter. Looking at the security monitors. And behind me, barely visible in the dim store light, a shadow, closer than I thought. That morning I quit. Or at least I tried to. Jim barely looked up from his coffee when I told him. "Nobody quits this place," he muttered. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I didn't care. I wanted out. Still, I had to finish my shift that night. My last shift. I told myself I'd get through it, ignore the weirdness, and never come back. But deep down, I knew that whatever was out there, it wasn't done with me. The night started off quiet. Too quiet. No customers. No cars. Just the sound of the refrigerators humming and the occasional creak of the old building settling. At exactly 2:33 a.m., I braced myself. Nothing happened. No car. No lights. I let out a shaky breath, almost laughing at myself. Maybe I had imagined everything. Maybe I was losing my mind. Then, the store phone rang. The sound was so sharp in the silence that I jumped. I hesitated before answering. West Side Gas. My voice came out unsteady. Nothing. Just static. Hello. The static crackled, shifted. Then a whisper. So soft I almost didn't hear it. Look outside. The line went dead. My throat tightened. Slowly, I turned toward the front window. The parking lot was empty. But then the security lights flickered. And in that brief moment of darkness, I saw it. A figure standing just outside the glass. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. When the lights came back, it was gone. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to dial 911. My fingers were slick with sweat, shaking too hard to type. Then I heard it, a sound from inside the store. Soft, slow, footsteps. I turned, my heart hammering against my ribs. The back office door was open, wide open. I knew for a fact Jim had locked it earlier. A cold wave of fear washed over me. I took a step forward, peering inside. Empty, but something felt off. Then I noticed Jim's coffee cup, still full. His chair pushed back like he had left in a hurry. But Jim never left during a shift. My pulse pounded in my ears as I stepped into the office. Jim. My voice came out barely above a whisper. No answer. I checked behind the desk, inside the tiny storage closet. Nothing. That's when I saw the security monitors. The feed from camera 3, facing the back hallway, was glitched, flickering in and out. Then for a brief second it came back, and I saw him, Jim, standing in the hallway, his back pressed against the wall. His face twisted in fear, mouth open in a silent scream. And right behind him, something else. A shape, too tall, too thin, its face just inches from Jim's. Then, the feed cut to static. A door slammed somewhere inside the store. I bolted, out of the office, past the aisles, straight for the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock, my breath coming in panicked gasps. Then I heard it, from right behind me, a whisper. You shouldn't leave yet. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The lock finally clicked. I yanked the door open and ran. I didn't stop until I was in my car, tires screeching against the pavement as I sped away. I never went back. A week later, I drove past the station during the day, just out of morbid curiosity. The place was shut down, closed overnight. No warning. I asked around, but nobody knew what happened to Jim. Nobody seemed to remember him at all. It was like he had never existed. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that security footage. The last image of Jim, the terror on his face, and the thing standing behind him. I've worked a lot of night shifts in my life. Warehouses, convenience stores, security jobs. Nothing ever really scared me. I liked the quiet, the stillness. But my job at the hotel changed that. It was an old business hotel, built in the 70s, sitting just outside the city. The kind of place businessmen stayed in for one night before catching an early flight. Nothing fancy, nothing memorable. I worked the front desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most nights were dead quiet. A few late check-ins, some guests calling for extra towels, the occasional drunk stumbling in. But mostly I just sat behind the desk, scrolling through my phone, waiting for the shift to end. Then one night, at around 2 a.m., the phone rang. Front desk, I answered, barely looking up from my screen. Static. Hello. For a second, nothing. Then, a faint voice crackled through the line. He's in my room. I frowned, sitting up straighter. I'm sorry, what? More static. Then, he's in my room. The voice was shaking. A woman. I glanced at the screen showing room numbers and active calls. Room 502. I typed quickly, pulling up the reservation details. There were none. The room wasn't occupied. Ma'am, are you saying someone broke into your room? I grabbed the landline, ready to call security. A long pause. Then, he's watching me. A chill ran down my spine. I stood up, gripping the master key. "I'm coming up now. Stay on the line with me, okay?" No response. Just soft breathing. The call disconnected. I hesitated for just a second before heading to the elevator. The entire ride up, I tried to convince myself it was just a system glitch. A cross line. A prank. But when the elevator doors opened, I felt it immediately. The hallway was colder than it should have been. The overhead lights flickered. Room 502 was at the end of the hall. I knocked. "Ma'am, it's Lucas from the front desk. I'm here to help." No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. "Hello?" Silence. I pressed my ear to the door, listening. Nothing. I hesitated, then slid the master key into the lock. It clicked, and I pushed the door open. The room was empty. The bed was made. The suitcases untouched. No sign of anyone. But the phone. The phone was off the hook, resting on the nightstand. I stepped inside, my breath coming uneven. The air smelled stale, like the room hadn't been used in years. I picked up the phone, listening to the faint hum of the open line. Then, a whisper. "You're too late." I dropped the phone. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I backed up, scanning the room. The bathroom door was half open. I took a step forward, reaching for the light switch. A faint creak. My breath hitched. It hadn't come from the bathroom. It had come from inside the closet. The door was slightly ajar. Just a crack. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to move. My fingers wrapped around the handle, and I yanked it open. Empty. Just a few unused hangers. The scent of dust and old wood. I let out a shaky breath. The room was empty, but then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The carpet. The thick hotel carpet in front of the closet was smooth, undisturbed. But inside, the fibers were flattened, like someone had been standing there for a long time. A shiver crawled down my spine. I hurried out of the room, locking it behind me. When I got back to the front desk, I checked the system again. Room 502 hadn't been occupied in years, but the call logs didn't lie. Someone, or something, had called me from that room. I barely slept after that night. I told myself it was just a glitch, that maybe someone had broken in and left before I got there. But the security footage said otherwise. The next night, I came in early and pulled up the surveillance feed from the 5th floor. My hands were already sweating as I rewound the footage to 2 a.m. The hallway was empty. No one entered room 502. No one left. But at exactly 2:03 a.m., the door opened. Just an inch. Then, after a few seconds, it shut. My stomach twisted. I scrubbed through the footage again, looking for any sign of movement inside the room. Nothing. And yet, I had spoken to someone. I leaned back in my chair, running a hand through my hair. I should have left it alone. But something inside me, morbid curiosity maybe, wouldn't let it go. So before my shift started, I went back up. 5th floor. The same cold air hit me as the elevator doors opened. The hallway was dead silent, the air thick, heavy. I walked toward 502, stopping in front of the door. It felt wrong, like the space beyond it wasn't empty. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I raised my hand and knocked. I don't know what I expected. Certainly not an answer. And yet, from inside, 3 slow knocks. My breath caught in my throat. I staggered back, my pulse hammering. The room was empty. I had seen it with my own eyes. Hadn't I? Then, the door handle twitched. Not turning, just a slight movement, like someone was holding it. I bolted, ran down the hall, slammed the elevator button over and over until the doors opened, then threw myself inside. My reflection in the elevator mirror was pale, eyes wide. I swore I wouldn't go back to that floor. I told myself I was done, and I meant it. But the next night, something happened that forced me to break that promise. At exactly 2 a.m., a guest came down to the lobby. A middle-aged man, looking groggy, confused. He walked up to the desk, rubbing his eyes. "Hey man, is there someone staying in the room next to mine?" I stiffened. "Which room are you in?" 503. My throat went dry. "Why?" I asked. The man gave a nervous chuckle, shaking his head. I must be going crazy, but I kept hearing knocking from the other side of the wall. I swallowed hard. Room 502 was next to his. The empty room. The locked room. I didn't really think much of it, the man continued. But then, I heard something else. I forced myself to speak. "What did you hear?" The man hesitated, breathing. My skin prickled. "It was slow at first," he said, voice lower now, like someone was standing right on the other side of the wall, listening. He rubbed his arms, suddenly looking cold. Then, after a while, it changed. I barely managed to get the words out. "Changed how?" The man frowned, like he was trying to find the right way to explain it. It sounded like it was coming from inside my room. I quit that morning. But sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I think about that whisper on the phone. "You're too late." And I wonder, too late for what? Or for who? I used to think working night security was an easy job. A paycheck for doing almost nothing. I was wrong. For the past 5 years, I've worked security at a small office building downtown. 6 floors, mostly law firms and accounting offices. At night, it was a ghost town. Just me, a few cleaning staff, and the hum of the vending machines. The building was old, but nothing creepy. No weird history, no urban legends. Just a boring corporate place where people sat at desks and stared at screens all day. Then one night, everything changed. It started with the elevator. At around 3 a.m., I was in the lobby, watching the security monitors. Everything was normal. The cleaning crew had left an hour earlier, and I was the only person inside. Then, the elevator doors opened. I glanced up from the monitors, expecting to see someone step out. But the elevator was empty. I frowned. No one had used their key card to call it. I checked the screen, which showed what floor the elevator had come from. 6th floor. I felt a small shiver crawl up my spine. No one worked on the 6th floor at night, and I had locked the stairwell hours ago. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the elevator, stepping inside. My hand hovered over the button panel before I finally pressed 6. The doors slid shut. The hum of the elevator filled the small space. When the doors opened, I stepped out into the hallway. The air was different up here. Stale. Heavy. The lights overhead flickered. Just a little. Barely noticeable. I took a slow breath and started walking. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with closed office doors. Everything was in place, nothing out of the ordinary. But my gut told me something was wrong. Then, halfway down the hall, I saw it. One of the office doors. Slightly open. A crack of darkness between the frame. I checked the plaque beside it. Suite 604 vacant. I knew for a fact that this office had been empty for months. No one was renting it. I reached for the doorknob. And that's when I noticed. The door handle was already turned. Like someone on the other side was holding it. I froze, my pulse hammering. My mind raced through the possibilities. Was someone squatting here? Had a cleaner forgotten to lock up? Or was it something else? Something I didn't want to think about. I took a step back. And then, the handle moved. Just a twitch. A small, deliberate movement. Like whoever was holding it wanted me to know they were there. I turned and walked away. Not ran. Walked. Kept my pace steady, my breathing normal. Acted like I hadn't seen anything. But the second I stepped into the elevator, I hit the button for the lobby and didn't look back. I didn't check the cameras. I didn't want to see what might have been standing behind that door. By the time I reached the lobby, my hands were shaking. I paced behind the security desk, trying to shake the feeling that I had made a mistake, like I had walked away from something I shouldn't have. Then the phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was the internal line. A call from inside the building. The screen lit up with the extension. 604. I stared at it, my throat dry. The vacant office. I didn't answer. I just stood there, heart pounding, as the phone rang and rang, until finally it stopped. Silence. I let out a shaky breath. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the phone system was old. Then, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open. My stomach dropped. The button panel inside. The light for the 6th floor was on. Something had just called the elevator. I backed away from the desk, shaking my head. No, I wasn't doing this. I grabbed my keys, ready to leave early, write it up as an equipment malfunction. Then my radio crackled. A soft burst of static, followed by a whisper. You shouldn't have left. My breath caught in my throat. I turned slowly, staring at the elevator. The doors were still open, the light for the sixth floor still glowing. A part of me wanted to run, but another part, some stupid, reckless part, knew that if I didn't go back up there, I'd never sleep again. I stepped inside, pressed 6. The doors slid shut, trapping me in the small space. The hum of the elevator filled my ears. Then, halfway up, the lights went out, pitch black. The elevator groaned, coming to an abrupt stop between floors. I fumbled for my flashlight, my breathing ragged. The walls felt like they were closing in. Then, from the speaker above me, that same whisper, "Come back." The elevator shuddered. The doors opened, not to the sixth floor, not to any floor, just darkness, like the space beyond wasn't a hallway anymore, like the building had forgotten how to exist. My flashlight flickered, and in that brief second of light, I saw them, hands, reaching from the dark, thin, pale, clawing at the edges of the elevator doors. I slammed my fist against the buttons. Any button. The doors shut. The elevator lurched. And then just as suddenly it was moving again. When the doors finally opened to the lobby, I ran. I left my keys, my radio, everything. I never went back. I don't know what I saw that night. I don't know who, or what, was inside Suite 604. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear it again. The whisper crackling through the static. You shouldn't have left.